Have you ever felt like there's a path, kind of like laid out just for you, but you're missing the signs? Like the universe is trying to send you a message, but it got lost in the spam folder.
Right.
That's what we're going to be diving deep into today, decoding those spiritual signs.
Okay.
And we're going way beyond just the surface level stuff, like finding a feather and thinking it's a sign from the angels.
Right.
Forget those cliches. We're talking about the real deal, the profound personal ways the universe might be guiding you. And, to be our guide in this exploration, we're turning to a conversation with Ishaan Mahesh on the Speaking Tree YouTube channel. He actually talks about being chosen, almost like he was selected for a specific purpose, and experiencing all these signals along his journey. So it's not just like random coincidences,
Right, yeah, he's talking about a much deeper level of guidance, right? It's like the universe, or however you want to think about that guiding force, is actively communicating with you.
Exactly. And, Mahesh received some of his guidance from Himalayan masters, and he even encoded it within his spiritual novels. He specifically mentioned one inspired by Hanuman called Kantonga Mujhe Krishna Chahiye, meaning, I need Krishna. Which is interesting, just that title itself, right?
Yeah, it speaks to a deep longing, this yearning for connection with something bigger than ourselves.
Yeah. And speaking of deep yearning and connection, he brings up the story of Arjuna in the Mahabharata. He was the only one, out of everyone, who got to see Krishna's Virat Roop, the cosmic form.
That's a good point. I mean, think about that, right? This epic filled with divine beings, and only Arjuna gets this incredible vision.
Yeah, and, Krishna even bowed at Yudhishthira's feet, but he only showed his Virat Roop to Arjuna, his friend.
Which is interesting, right? Because Hanhas means friend. So at that point, Arjuna is connecting with Krishna on a purely human level, but it begs the question, why Arjuna? Why was he chosen for this?
And this is where things get really interesting because, the expert explains that God was constantly sending Arjuna signals, but Arjuna didn't understand them at first. It wasn't until he finally understood that he felt this huge remorse for calling Krishna just a friend.
So the signals were there all along, but Arjuna's perspective had to change, right? He had to become receptive to them.
Right, exactly. And then there's the test of choosing, Before the war, Arjuna was sent to Krishna to ask for his army, the Narayani Sena. But the alternative was Krishna himself, unarmed.
Right, and it wasn't just a simple choice between an army and an individual, right? The Narayani Sena represented worldly power, security, all that stuff. Choosing Krishna meant putting your faith in the divine above everything else.
You can imagine the reaction, right? Arjuna chose Krishna, and the Kshatriya community was like, what are you doing? You're throwing away a whole army.
They thought he was crazy. They couldn't see the value in choosing the divine over a massive military force.
It really dampened their spirits, and they even criticized him, called him a fool.
Right, because their perspective was entirely materialistic. They were focused on winning the war, tangible outcomes.
But Arjuna stayed strong. His choice was Bunkong Kantown, Muji Krishna Chahiye, meaning I need Krishna. And that's the thing, right? Life is always presenting us with these signals, these choices, but we often miss them.
We get so caught up in the everyday stuff that we forget to look for the deeper meaning.
They even shared a modern example, someone who was invited to the Himalayas on October 2nd, but they couldn't go because of a business meeting. Guess what? The person got sick right before that meeting.
Interesting. It's like the universe was trying to redirect them, protect them from something.
That's exactly how the expert interpreted it. But the pull of, money and work was just too strong.
So the lesson here is about recognizing when we're prioritizing the urgent over the truly important, right? Are we missing those subtle cues that could lead us in a different direction?
Now, speaking of misinterpretations, Duryodhana, he went all out with a propaganda campaign against Arjuna, called him Kia to Erdamara, the chief among fools, for choosing Krishna. And he even called Krishna a trickster because he couldn't understand it.
He was totally blinded by his own ego and greed, right? He couldn't fathom that someone would prioritize the divine over worldly power.
Even Balrama, Krishna's own brother, was critical of Arjuna's decision. But Krishna, he defended Arjuna so powerfully. He was like, how can you call him a fool for choosing me over an empire? He showed me the ultimate respect.
It shows the difference between worldly understanding and spiritual understanding, right? The world often sees those who choose the divine path as foolish, but they're the ones who are truly wise.
It's like Mirabai, who was called Biyaya, mad, for her devotion. So the real awakening happens when we start recognizing these divine signals, even if they don't make sense to the rest of the world.
Right. It's about shifting our focus from the external to the internal.
And the expert uses a great analogy. Just like someone who knows clay can recognize it in any form, a pot, a bowl, a glass, once you understand the essence of the divine, the itakometer, you start seeing it everywhere. God, he says, is constantly sending us signals, trying to draw us closer.
And this can lead to some pretty major life changes, right? He even talked about Swami Vivekananda, who was incredibly intelligent, spoke 17 languages, but couldn't even get a clerk job at first.
It's like nature was steering him away from a mundane path so he could fulfill a greater purpose. And think about it, right? Maybe some of the things we see as setbacks in our lives are actually redirecting us towards something bigger.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Vivekananda had this deep inner thirst, this longing for something more. And that drew him to the divine. So that inner yearning is key. It makes us receptive to those signals.
And speaking of signals, they also talked about how nature itself can provide protective signals, like the story of the golden deer in the Ramayana, the Swarnamriga. Rama and Lakshmana both warned Sita that it was probably an illusion, but she didn't listen.
The Ramayana is full of examples like that. Lakshmana warning about the voice mimicking Rama's cries for help, telling Sita not to cross the line. It's like when the negative forces are strong, we become blind to the guidance that's trying to protect us.
And they contrasted those who ignore the signals with those who are really receptive, like Kevat, the boatman who just wanted to ferry Rama across the river, and Shabari, whose devotion was so strong that it drew Rama to her.
Her longing was so intense, it was like a magnet pulling the divine towards her. And recognizing one signal can lead to another, right? It opens us up to more guidance.
It's like learning to read, the expert said. You start with letters, then words, then sentences. Recognizing one spiritual sign can be the start of a whole new level of understanding.
Right. It's a process, just like anything else.
He even talked about following signals that led to big material losses. Being told to sell everything becomes zero. It was like clearing the ground to build something new and stronger.
That idea of reaching ground zero is about detachment, breaking free from the grip of wealth. It's a difficult but necessary step in spiritual growth.
And he talked about how attachment to wealth can really hold us back, create fear and control. And he even pointed out that societies use fines and financial loss to control people.
And the funny thing is, he said that when you detach from the desire for wealth, it actually flows more easily. Lakshmi, the goddess of wealth, loves to be with those who don't chase after her.
So this ground zero experience led to new spiritual openings for him, like a rebirth within this lifetime. He talked about the concept of akshain, twice born, a spiritual renewal that happens in the same body. So we can go through these rebirths multiple times, right? Each time we detach and renew ourselves, it's like an upgrade to our inner system.
It's like we're constantly evolving, shedding old layers, and stepping into a newer, more expansive version of ourselves.
And he shared a story about his wife losing a gold chain. She wasn't upset about the loss itself, but about his reaction. It shows how we attach so much meaning to material things, how they become tied up in our relationships and societal expectations.
And he said the real value isn't in the object, but in our inner peace and understanding. He even joked about thinking of the chain as if it was made of something cheap to lessen its emotional hold. It's about not letting external losses disrupt our inner equilibrium.
This brings us to strengthening our inner radar for these signals. He used the analogy of an antenna. If it's always pointed toward material desires, we're going to miss the spiritual frequencies. He talked about testing those attachments, seeing how quickly someone will drop everything for a business deal versus a spiritual gathering.
And he talked about fashionable spirituality, where people are doing it for the trend, not for real transformation. So are we being authentic in our pursuit of spirituality?
He compared it to a bee knowing which flower is real. You can't fool nature. Now, a lot of people have asked about dreams, particularly recurring dreams of unfamiliar temples. And the expert explains this through the Sukshma Sharira Hoya, the subtle body's journey during sleep.
It's fascinating, right? He's saying that for a brief moment during sleep, our subtle body can actually travel through time. Our soul carries all these impressions from past experiences, kind of like a blueprint.
He actually referenced Milov and Stankoler's book Soul Print, which talks about that blueprint of the soul. And he used the analogy of a computer opening a file to access past memories. So during deep sleep, our subtle body can tap into those memories and bring them into our dreams, even if we don't consciously remember them.
It makes you wonder what kind of information is stored in our souls, right? He even mentioned his novel, I Not, where a character experiences multiple lives simultaneously.
Another question that comes up a lot is about innocent people who get taken advantage of. Does God help them, or are they on their own? And the expert strongly believes that God doesn't abandon the innocent.
He shared the story of Narsi Mehta, where Krishna himself helped with the Jesha ceremony when Narsi Mehta was so absorbed in his devotion.
And there's a story of the railway guard who was lost in his practice, but somehow still managed to do his job. It's like the more simple and pure you are, the more divine assistance you receive.
Right, it's about aligning yourself with that innocence and faith.
And they told the story of the Teshasara cat, milkmaid, and the pandit. The milkmaid, with her simple faith in Rama, walked across the flooded river. The pandit, even though he was chanting Rama's name, doubted and fell in.
It shows that intellectual understanding isn't enough. It's the purity and strength of belief that really matters.
Then the expert shared a personal story about being defrauded of 8 lakh rupees. And despite feeling wronged, a comment from a photo stat boy gave him a new perspective. The swindler probably prayed for a Khan, a prey, and he happened to be it.
And instead of getting angry or seeking revenge, he invited the swindler for tea, treated him with respect, even gave him gifts. He wanted to release the taya, the poison, within himself.
And the swindler ended up confessing, feeling so guilty that he couldn't even face the expert again. It's like responding to negativity with compassion can have a transformative effect.
It's powerful, right? It highlights the importance of trust, of faith.
And the expert said that being cheated happens because we trust, we have faith. Kantanapal, he said people who are deceived shouldn't blame themselves, their simplicity is their virtue. It's like the rabbit being preyed upon by the wolf. It's not the rabbit's fault.
That's a good analogy.
But there's this cynical view that everyone's dishonest, right? And the expert countered that by saying, look at history. There have always been virtuous people. He mentioned Lal Bahadur Shastri, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. Choose your role models wisely, he said. Follow the divine and those who embody simplicity.
It's about surrounding ourselves with positive influences, learning from those who have walked the path before us.
And he shared examples of other devotees who received divine intervention, like Tanafagat and Sandravidas, who said, Any cause and plain. Adala people, if the mind is pure, the Ganges flows in the wooden dish.
It's a beautiful reminder that even in the simplest of things, the divine can be present.
And the expert offered a powerful sadhana, a spiritual practice for everyone listening. Stop negative thoughts and words towards those who have harmed you. He said holding on to resentment pollutes our inner energy and destroys our merit. It is client. It's like having a dirty screen, he said. It prevents us from seeing the divine signals clearly.
It makes sense, right? We need to clear our inner space to make room for the positive.
And he shared a story of women who stopped reacting negatively to their mothers-in-law, viewing criticism as a test from Rama. It led to such positive change for them. It's amazing how shifting our perspective can have such a profound effect.
It's about choosing to see the good in every situation, even the challenging ones.
And he emphasized the power of non-reaction. If someone calls you Obi, a fool, respond with gratitude, he said. Insults are meant to provoke a reaction, so by not reacting, you take away their power.
It's a powerful way to maintain your inner peace.
And he shared a teaching from a guru. When someone insults you, ask for forgiveness. Apologize for your existence causing them to garnish their tongue with negativity. It sounds counterintuitive, but it's about taking responsibility for our role in this situation, even if it feels unfair.
It's about rising above the negativity and choosing a higher path.
And the expert said that by consciously adopting these principles, we become resilient, detached, almost proofed against negativity.
We build up an inner strength that allows us to navigate the world without being affected by external circumstances.
And he ended with a beautiful quote from the poet Mati Das. The path of love, affection, devotion is extremely pure and simple. And he gave examples of devotees' unwavering faith, like Mirabai accepting poison as prasad, a shalagram appearing instead of a snake.
It speaks to the power of faith, of trusting in something greater than ourselves.
And the story of Krishna transforming the snake sent by Kalayavan into a flower just with his intention, his Gajanida. It's like pure intention can literally change reality.
Wow. So much to think about. Thank you so much for sharing all of this. This has been a really deep conversation, and I think it will really resonate with our listeners.
It's been my pleasure, and I hope it inspires listeners to look for those signals in their own lives. And to you, our listeners, we'd love to hear your experiences. Have you ever recognized what you believe to be divine signs? Share your stories with us in the comments. We're so curious to hear them. And as you go about your day, maybe take a moment to reflect on the subtle signals you might have overlooked. How can you become more aware, more receptive? What ground zero, what act of letting go might be necessary for your next spiritual rebirth? Thank you for joining us for this deep dive on Speaking Tree.
Thank you.